Hi guys, welcome to the Never Fully Heard podcast. Thank you for coming on.
Oh wow! What a title for a podcast! Never
That is
fully
a good
heard.
title.
That's a really good title.
Something to make me blush. um, where I want to start, I guess, is what is the Awakened Man project, and why did you both start it?
Pete, you lead on this one because you actually were the germinator. You know, the germination phase of the Awakened Man was largely due to Pete. So do you want to shoot on this one, brother?
Yeah. Okay. I always say this. I'm like, let me give you like the 3 minute backstory. 20 minutes later, I'm still talking. So let me cut that down, and I give you the really easy, quick backstory on how the Awaken Man project started, and why it started. So my really quick story is that I was in corporate for nearly 13, 14 years. I then went and started my own business. So for seven years, I built my own company. During that time of building my own company, and actually when I was in corporate as well, I was obsessed with my own personal growth and personal development. And especially when I took the entrepreneurial jump, I was even more obsessed with it because I was opened up into this world where like it was quite normal to want to grow as a business owner. So I spent a long time doing business programs and business courses and employing mentors and coaches and consultants to be a better businessman. And I learned loads. My skill sets increased tenfold. Our business started doing really, really well. How many years in? Probably 3 years into the business, I stumbled across a guy called Yazine, who a very successful businessman, but was also achieving great things outside of business. Right, and I pestered and pestered and pestered him to mentor me, and he finally agreed. And we started the mentoring journey, and he came into my business and really helped us grow. But he also helped me grow personally as a man. And something that he drilled into me really, really early on is that like my business and my relationships and my life outside of business would only ever grow as much as I was willing to grow personally as a man. Right. And it took me a while to grasp that because I'm like, no, I'll just go and do the next marketing course. I'll just go and earn more money, and then that money will just fix all my other problems. But probably 5 years in, 5.5 years into me owning my own business, on the outside, lots of success. On the inside, for me, I felt like shit. Wasn't in a good place. And all I was really doing was just suppressing it. I wasn't telling many people about it. I was just pushing it down, batting it off, and just going to buy the next thing or just growing the business a little bit more to go and fix those problems. And so like this is where this started to, as Ben say, germinate. And this like the a program around helping men started to form because I needed the help, right? And it wasn't just in my business; it was like in my relationships. I was absolutely neglecting them with my friends and my partner, and I wanted to have children. But deep inside, I didn't feel good. I felt really dark, and there were some really, really dark moments in my life, but no one knew, right? And actually, like I wasn't broken, right? I didn't need fixing. What I really needed was growth. And what I really needed was other guys to help me grow. And so very accidentally, Yazine saw this. It was like, I'm going to set up a group for men because Pete, there are other guys like you, that he was coaching and that he was mentoring other business owners. And so he set up this group called the Awaken Man for just guys like us to go inside and talk about some of the things that we don't talk about because we're business owners and we're guys and we're alphas and we're happy to carry this all on our shoulders. And the more we were having these open conversations, the better our lives started to get. And then this group just grew bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Ben came into our lives. Ben then decided to join us at the Awakened Man, and before we know it, we had a business, and then we had guys coming to see us and be part of it, right? And so that is how the Awakened Man started.
Amazing. Love the story. I always love when businesses are started off like from a problem that someone has in their life, and then the business is a passion project, because you can just tell when the energy that someone puts into a business, when it's based off something that's happened to them in their life and the need for them, it's just so much more powerful than someone doing it for a quick buck.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's something that Ben talks about a lot. We're in the trenches. Like we're not exonerated from any of this work. We never are. There's always work to be done. There's always growth to be had. We're absolutely in the trenches. We don't sit on our high horses and say, you guys need to be doing this, and that, and we're not doing it, because we are.
Why do you think men are crying out for more spaces like this?
Ben, you take this one.
I can share on this. Yeah, I on the outside, same as Pete, had the great life. I had the film reel, Insta reel relationship that I portrayed to the outside world, and then it all came crashing down for me. Late 30s, and I really just went to find somewhere where I could get help. I didn't want a counselor, I didn't want a therapist at the time. It's like I just need to find something where I can just let off some steam. And like one day I was in the shower, I had my head banging, like a headache, had the head against the glass, and I'm like, this can't continue. And a really good friend of mine reached out to me, said, come on my retreat. And I went on a men's retreat, and I loved it. I didn't resonate with it straight away. It was guys hugging each other, speaking, talking about some really dark stuff. And I was like, holy shit, this is like, but I knew that I needed that space, but it wasn't there. The guys in that space particular weren't my guys. Like they were great guys, but they weren't my guys. And then I went to a number of men's sessions, and the same wasn't my kind of group of guys. I love money. I love success. I love talking about growth. And a lot of the men that I found in these spaces were anti-establishment, loved yoga, lots and lots of trauma. And there was no judgment, but I was like, no, I want to use this work to fuel my growth. And what I realized is that if I was experiencing it, there's no doubt that other men were experiencing the same thing. And I just saw, even in my own friendship group, wanting a level of conversation that we just weren't having or willing to have. And when I started to peel back in the industry, I was in the fitness industry, that other guys were going through the same thing. I was like, oh, there is a real need for this. And so what I'm starting to see that there's this shift towards men actually having a desire to be more conscious with their emotions, but they just do not even know the path. And my grounding in personal transformation meant I was primed to do this work with the men on the course. And like Pete's mentioned there, we're not exonerated. I actually think for us, it's like for us to lead in and being part of the group, it's even more pressure to do the work and show that we're in the trenches, because I think there's this nice feeling that we create the safety by being courageous, and that's what we've noticed. And Pete's got a great saying: "Courage is contagious." When they see us stepping up and having impossible goals, sharing our dark shit with our customers, and we share openly, and it's like, oh, if they're willing to share it and we're their customers, I can share my dark and the things that I struggle with, and that what happens is, and it's strange, it's really strange observation. We don't do like loads and loads of business structure, like instruction. We do a great deal. We do more than most people. At the same time, I believe that the greatest shift in a lot of the men who come and join us comes from the fact that they let off this burden, this weight that they've been carrying for so long. Like some guys walk in and start speaking in our groups, and like, I didn't know men talk like this. I didn't know this actually was a discussion that men would be having, and and all of a sudden they go and make more sales. They're connecting with their wife. They're more present with their kids, and it seems really simple, but there isn't these spaces available online, I don't feel.
Yeah, it's so powerful. And it makes me think how many men are just trapped in their heads, having this like pressure valve just creeping up There was a quote from I remember it was on Joe Rogan. It was like he was quoting someone else, but it was like most men live lives of quiet desperation, and I think there's just hardly any spaces where people have to go to let out this. And I thought the episode you guys did on safe spaces for men was a really interesting one, and it's one I've been trying to figure out how I word it, because I don't want some men to get put off by the word safe space, because it sounds I don't know how it sounds, but I can imagine some men getting put off by it. But how, yeah, I guess, how would you describe a safe space for men, and how have you created it?
I, I wholeheartedly agree. Right, like my perception, especially even the word men's work.
Mm.
Like my perception of that a couple of years ago was a load of guys in the woods hugging each other, singing, singing around a campfire and
Mm.
dancing. And it's not. I mean, there are those spaces, and you know what? They're great. You know, um, but actually, like we're a bunch of normal guys who are, like Ben said earlier, love our business, love our families, constantly want to grow, and actually just surrounding yourself with more people like us, magic happens. This is the thing. Me and you, Nick, go for a drink down the pub, just the two of us. It's highly likely that we'll be very much in our heads. When you get me and you, Nick, and Ben, and then 30 other guys that are on very similar wavelengths in the way we think, like together, the conversation really, really raises. And you're not so much in your head, but you really get to listen to how other guys are leading their lives and what's going on, and you realize that we all take a shit, um, and we all go through similar pains, and it's very, very powerful when you've got a group of guys that are going to go through the challenges with you, and then are going to push you as well, right? Are going to push you into the next level of growth. So that's where this, like, the safe space actually comes from guys helping each other to grow.
Yeah, so powerful. And one of the things I enjoy about the podcast is like that feeling of like wanting to play full out, wanting to go for it. But I think one thing that just holds a lot of people, this is something that's been holding me back recently, just because I haven't got like my time management. I haven't got. I think one of the archetypes you put in the podcast was like sadist and warrior archetypes. And I think those two energies are almost like playing between each other for me at the moment. I've got the personal development knowledge that I know what I should be doing, but the like almost like the sadist in me is keeping. Like, I just keep myself busy, and like I work long hours, but some of the feedback was that I've spread myself too thin across too many projects, and that like what the quote was: if you're doing over and above amount of hours, you should be getting over and above results. And it hurt to hear that I wasn't getting those because they were spread too thin. But in my head, I was like, oh, I'm working all these hours, I'm doing all this, and like I'm being that like warrior type. But I guess how does some of these like being too busy, overworking, feeling like you've got to be that guy, how does that actually stop people from playing full out?
I think what happens is that they're not effective. Guys aren't effective because they are so go go go, and they believe that they've got this level of success by working hard. They can't, it's like, I've created this through working hard. What happens if I was more effective? What happens if I did put in breaks and sleep well and didn't get shit faced and do 3 lines of cocaine on the weekend? Like, I'm doing well, feeling like this. Well, if I dropped all of that, what would happen? Would I enjoy my life as much? So actually, what happens is they're not achieving their potential. They're numbing because they feel as they do. They're like, I've got this idea of my potential. I'm not hitting it, so I'm going to numb. So what's actually really going on is they're nowhere near busy, and like they're nowhere near at capacity, but they feel busy. They feel stimulated. So actually, sometimes they're pacifying themselves with work, feeling busy, doing stuff that just doesn't move the needle. And what having a really, really grounded group of people around you, you can see someone who is doing multiple 100,000 in their business. They maybe have a team of 15, or there's someone else that they can watch and model. Now, most men don't grow up now because of divorce rates. Like, there's a huge majority of men who don't grow up with a great role model in the house, a great father who role models this. So they've got to try and find it from somewhere. And they watch things on the internet. They hear people like Grant Cardone saying crush it, and Gary Vee saying work all the time. So they become workaholics. But behind that, they haven't spent time prioritizing the thing that they're working for, which is a life. And what I've noticed, and like especially working with your scenes, working with Pete, having open discussions about how we're creating the business to support our lifestyle instead of the other way around. It's what you just, I think what happens is this kind of osmosis. Men see men doing it that way, like, oh, maybe I don't need to work all the time, and maybe I don't need to be always busy. And like even Pete shared on the podcast the other day, he's like, he had 20 minutes where he went and just was it when he was being in his garden, just literally enjoying the moment. And I was like, hang on a second, did that the other day. Took about 10 minutes off and just sat in the garden and listened to the birds, came back in, I was super creative. So it's starting to, instead of just understanding these things intellectually, it's embodying them. And I think that's where the shift comes as well.
Yeah, because as you were saying that, I was just thinking I'm definitely doing some of the behaviours which just, and I've seen some of my friends do it. It's like almost like glorifying not taking a lunch break, like working until late, working until I'm the last one in the office. And it, like, if I really reflect on, is that work moving the needle? And almost trying to force myself to do I think it's the 80-20 principle, right? Doing the work that's going to move the needle and not just trying to be busy. But it's the word pacify, I think, I know for a lot of my friends, when they get into tough mental states, their route one is just to pacify themselves with overworking. And it's such an interesting reaction, but I'm sure you guys have seen that with so many different men on the project.
Yeah. Like ironically, we talked about this a couple of days ago on our latest podcast. I was that guy. I'd pride myself on how hard I worked. And like no one could outwork me. I'm the hardest man in the room. Well, it's just like no one cares.
Literally.
No one cares, right? Took me a while to learn that. And B, I'm absolute. Yeah, I can. Maybe I can work 16. Sorry, maybe I can work 16-hour days, right? But am I achieving much in those 16-hour days? Just because I'm working hard doesn't mean I'm achieving a lot. And that's where, like what Ben alluded to earlier, being effective with your time. That's where it gets really sexy. When you start thinking about the 80-20, and then the 80-20 of the 80-20, and then the 80-20 of that 80-20, because then it becomes really that's like a power rule, right? We talk about mental models. That's the mental model of the mental model. When you start going not just that 80-20 of that, but to go really, really deep into that, we get really great with leverage, and then your 4 hours become someone else's, or your old, so not someone else's, like your old 16 hours becomes 4 hours of yours because you learned how to be effective with your time. So, but sometimes you just like, you don't get to think about that until you go through all the experience, and then you might be lucky enough to figure it out, or you'd be around a group of guys that are doing that, and then you go, hang on a minute, how is he getting that output with his time? How is he like putting in one unit of input and he's getting 1,000 levels of output? Okay, I want to learn about that. Right. And that's the power of being around other guys that are going through serious growth, is because you get to see that.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting, because I'm thinking my group of friends, that it's not that they don't care, they're just not on the same path as me or don't have the same mindset. And when we meet up, it's just, we do chat about work a bit, but it's not about the actual ins and outs of like how you actually going about this, like, and executing it, because that's just not their headspace. And then I'm not going to chat to my colleagues that much about it, because they're not going to they just wouldn't care or wouldn't resonate with them. But getting feedback from my boss was a kind of like a mirror up to myself. But it's like, how much time have I wasted in life not being effective or not having that? And if I'd been around a group of guys who are also going after it in that same way, that's just going to be so powerful for people to experience that.
Every level of your life increases tenfold, and it keeps increasing.
I think what we're actually delivering a training on this today is like why men need impossible goals for psychological wellness, and it's like what I really got from just spending time with Yassine, and he kept on banging on about this. I was like, "What's your impossible goal, Ben? Like, what do you really want?" And he asked me again and again and again and again. It's having someone who's that persistent ask you that. It's really frustrating when you don't know. And then when you actually start to say, hang on a second, I want to do this thing that's so far beyond my current capability, I need to be somebody totally different to achieve it, or I need to at least envelop the parts of me that I've been holding back on, then you have to play big. Like, we've got a men's event in January. We're literally getting high performing men around each other who want to really connect and start to do this work. And we've never done an event of that size before. And I'm literally seeing that the actually only obstacles for that being full are internal, like me showing up, sharing, being optimal. So going back to your point before, Nick, you don't get time to, mess about when you've got an impossible goal. You have to, and especially when it's out there in public and it's got, one of the guys is flying over from Mexico to be at the event. So I haven't got time to mess about. I can't be suboptimal because of the pressure. And that pressure has forced me to change. And I feel the change is happening in how I'm seeing myself showing up. And I have to be more persistent. I've got no choice. I like that. I like that pressure. And I think that's what we do with guys really, really well, is we help them say, well, what's your impossible goal? What are you committing to? Not just committing to, but really committing to, like getting really, really persistent and granular about and going after. And honestly, watching men do like even annual incomes in 90 days. Like, let's make your annual income your quarterly income. And I've seen guys go from annual income to their quarterly income, and then they've gone and done it in 30 days because they've just seen what's possible. And it's just, again, it's just holding the space for them to see the level at which they can play at. And yeah, that's something that blew me away. Like, we're new to this. Like, not, I've been a coach for a long time, 13, 14 years. I was like, oh gosh. But I coached in health first, but now watching the same thing create the success arc in people's businesses and their parenting, it's very, very gratifying. And it's also amazing to watch these men who are so capable. They're naturally A players anyway, but they've got some bullshit stories holding them back. They got some, really shitty beliefs, and they break through them. And you just watch this inflection point in their success, and it's like, holy shit, and that's amazing. Like that every day we get to see that, and it's amazing.
Yeah, I really hope that any guy listening really looks to find their tribe, whether it's through your project or through another tribe, to really just find that group of people that are on your wavelength and just attacking it. Because the energy you get from actually like thinking, right, what's my impossible goal, right? How am I actually going to go after it? And thinking through the person you'd have to become to achieve that. It's like intoxicating compared to like normal life and normal small talk, like how's the weather? What are you up to at the weekend? Like all nice conversations, but when you get into the room with people who really like want to attack it, that energy is just amazing. Where does the dark side come into all of this?
Oh, what a question, Nick. Okay, can I start answering this, Pete, and you can share after as well with your experience? So the dark side is like the part of you which we've been taught by a guy called Barry Michaels is latent potential. It's the part of us that we hold down, push back, keep in the shadow, that is actually some of our greatest strengths. Like, actually, both me and Pete are very intense guys. Don't know if you noticed, Nick. we love very intense, right? Part of that it was in my shadow. It was like, oh, I don't want to show up as intense in front of other people because I might not be loved, I might not belong, or might be rejected. So I'd hold back on that and I'd be less intense. And actually, it's a really, really great quality for me because it helps me push into the things I really, really want. Now, what we do is that inherently, if things that are part of us that we don't want the world to see, we expend energy pushing them. Like obviously, you can see the video. I'm pushing down, almost like a beach ball floating on the water. All the stuff on the top, we like people to see. It's like, look at me, I'm happy, I'm pragmatic, I'm successful. The dark part on the beach ball is on the bottom, and we're expending energy keeping it below the surface. But inevitably, business breakdown, divorce, psychological struggle, people passing away happens in life. And we can't give that same energy to holding ourselves back. The beach ball pops up, everyone sees, we have this thing like a midlife crisis or we've seen it so many times in the people ahead of us. And there's a great deal of shame that comes about that. So what we do is help men start to see that that dark part is equally responsible for their success as the light. So all of the things, like your biggest trauma and your biggest things in life, the biggest negative things, quote unquote, negative things that have happened are equally responsible for your success as all of the things that you say, oh, I'm pragmatic, I'm positive, I'm happy, I'm go-getter. That's just 50% of the reason. And then once men acknowledge that, they're like, oh my gosh, maybe I can show that part of me a little bit more. And that's what generally happens when people start to really dig into the dark.
Nice. Yeah, my little take on that. From my own experience, right? So I'm only talking about what happened to me, and maybe some other guys can relate to this. Is that my darker side, which now it's got that name, I would suppress, but what would really happen is that I would still portray that onto the people that I loved subconsciously. Right. So, my anger might come out, or passive aggressiveness might come out, and things may come out onto the people that I love the most, or just even through my work and through my business. And actually, that was holding me back. We use something called shadow work. We use a tool called shadow work to help us to check that out. So see what's going on underneath there, like what's going on in the head. It's mega powerful to be able to unpack and then understand our emotions and our roadblocks and our behaviors. Imagine that, right? Imagine you being able to understand what's going on. And then that's a fantastic tool for you because, okay, well, great. Now I can unlock all this potential that I've got going on that I suppressed, that I pushed down. Really understand that. It just leads to growth. So that's my experience with that. When I began to understand it, is where I began to grow that little bit more.
And what's the first step for someone wanting to understand more of their own dark side or their shadow?
Find a professional who can help you safely guide through it. It's something that I would invite somebody to seek professional support, like a psychotherapist or a group of men who have got a lead in some level of psychotherapeutic training, and there's lots of them about. We're lucky we've got Yassine, who's he's got a PhD in psychology, and he's literally and then anything that wades outside of our remit of expertise and knowledge, we refer people, say, hey, listen, what would be a really good idea for you to do is get a psychotherapist along through this journey. So I believe, like, even when we did shadow work, it's not me and Pete doing it. We got one of the best people in the world to come in who works with Hollywood screenwriters, the who's who of Hollywood, came and did literally, like, Jeff Bezos is therapist's partner. So like there's a documentary coming out about him called Stutz in November, and we got his business partner Barry, and he came and did a session with us, which started that process. And then We worked with Barry's team, and so we got world class shadow work, which we were so lucky to get that. It literally was not an opportunity that we'd never get before. But yeah, going back to someone who's looking to start looking in that, go and find a really good group that works for you. But I think you definitely need someone who is professionally trained, because it can bring up a lot of trauma. It can bring up a lot of uh, unease, but it can, on the other side, it's like handling dangerous materials. It can be super powerful, but at the same time it can be destructive. So yeah, definitely worthwhile going and searching.
Yeah, just thinking from my own experiences there, that it definitely need a professional for certain aspects of it. Because I remember at university I used to have. I'm a super chilled out person now, but I had a real like short fuse on certain things, and I like couldn't control it. Like that, it'd always be brought up in competition. Like I'd lose, or I'd felt like someone was taking advantage of me, and that would just have like it caused me to like snap and have such an angry reaction. Um, but talked that through with a therapist, found like did some like inner child work, found like what the shadow was and where it was taking a grip of me and where my shortfallings was. But now, once I control it, and if I focus it onto a certain goal or a certain thing I need to achieve, when I need to find that extra bit of motivation and intensity, like you can harness that energy for your advantage. But yeah, it sounds like you're always bringing on incredible experts to the Awakened Man project. Sounds amazing. Was that always? Is what is the next event out of interest? What are the type of things you're gonna be doing on it?
Well, we called it Men's Business, actually, named by one of the men on the group. That's the great thing about having a really talented group of men. We're like, guys, we're struggling with creation. Anyone got an idea what we can call the event? Like, we're going to call it the Awakened Man event. It was called Men's Business. It's for men who, on the surface, have everything together, but deep down, they know that they need to work on some stuff. They're hurting. They're struggling. They know there's a next level of success for them, but it's that part of them that's holding them back. And we wanted to make it sexy instead of in the woods beating drums, banging chests, hugging, and stuff like that. We wanted to give guys who are more on the business spectrum, looking to step into this kind of work, the opportunity. So I said to Pete, I'd love to do an event. Pete is an incredible operator. He can, like Pete, one of Pete's master skills is he's very good at architecting dreams and visions into actual daily steps. Like this guy, there's nobody else I've ever met like this guy who can do that. And then we're like, right, well, it's got to be impossible. So it's in January. So we've only got like 3 months to do it. We want to bring 200 guys into a room and have an experience, not just a TED talk, an experience where they're going to go away and be different men at the end of the day. And Robert Glover, who is literally like the Alex Ferguson of the men's world, is flying from Mexico to support us and do the work and be part of the group. We've got Dan Meredith, who is literally he's a phenomenal marketer. So there's actually some business advice and practical, pragmatic stuff that's going to come for that from men in business. But equally, it's just been around a number of men who are, like you said before, Nick, who want to have these conscious conversations and perform at their best, and so that's coming together. Pete, did you want to share anything more on the event?
Come, yeah, it's going to be in London. It's January the 28th, full day on a Saturday. On the 29th, there is a VIP day where you spend a day with us guys and Dr. Robert Glover and Dan Meredith, and we'll have another special guest. But core day is the Saturday, so it's super accessible. There's no disgusting prices or anything like that. It's come along, you're going to get a serious amount of value. The big thing is that you're going to be in an environment with 200 other men that are pushing, that want to push the boundaries, that want to grow. Just being there, you're gonna meet other people, meet other guys. That alone is, you said earlier, Nick, about your friend circle, right? I had, we have those. It's when you get on this path where you want to be better and become the best version of you. sometimes you outgrow some of your existing friends, right? And that's cool, and they're still cool to go and have a laugh with, and to do like the laddish things and the boyish things with them, but also to have another set where you're talking about growth and stepping into your best version. That's also super cool, and that's what this event's going to be like.
I've got a few things to say to finish up. I think one thing I love about you guys is how well you speak of each other, and I think it's something that more men should really take on. And if your mate's crushing it and someone you know is crushing it, tell them, because those words of encouragement really do mean a lot, and it allows people to focus in on what their superpower is. A lot of people don't get enough feedback. So when you're like, if your mate does something really well, tell them, because it could be something they need to develop and turn into a potential business or something. I think what you guys are doing is really inspiring. It definitely makes me want to continue to build this community, but just smash it in business and life and start to really become more effective. And I think if more people can either become part of your project or start their own or find these communities, it just puts everyone in such a better place. So yeah, thank you both for coming on.
Thank you, Nick. Actually, just a little share before we go. Like the celebration thing. Every Friday, we have wins popping up in our group and men celebrating one another. Literally, like, really genuinely celebrating the success of other men. And actually, what's actually I've noticed is the guys that learn to celebrate other people's success are the guys that have success themselves. And it's really, thank you for pointing that out, and I appreciate the podcast today. Really, really grateful, and the great questions as well.
Yeah, cheers, Nick. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Never Fully Heard podcast. If you enjoyed it, please just share it with a friend. Would love to get this to as many people as possible. Thank you.